Hello, Julie here, and today I'm going to be showing you how I created my design team layout for the August cyber crop at Mystical Scrapbooks. This month it's all about sketches, so I'm using a sketch and this is the layout that I've created. The papers I'm using for this layout are from Arty. Be the Sunshine range is the paper, and there's one sheet that's got a lot of flowers on it, and I have fussy cut a lot of those out ready to use. I'm also going to use a stencil from the Crafters Workshop. It's called Tile Texture, and I'm going to use modelling paste to put through that. So I'm going to use modelling paste, as I said, to put through that stencil, and I'm going to do that over the whole background. I'm using white cardstock for my background, and the modelling paste of course goes on white. So I'm using my palette brush to do my palette knife to do that, but you can use all sorts of things. You could use an old credit card or hotel room card, or you know, I've seen some people use brushes, so it just depends what you're comfortable using. I like to use a palette knife, so that's what I use. I'm going to move my stencil, so if you move your stencil mid-page, you have to be very careful that you haven't got a lot of paste on the back of your stencil. And also when you lay your stencil down, you don't want to flatten the paste that's already there, so you need to be mindful of that as well. Once I've got that covered, I set that aside to dry naturally. I don't usually use a heat gun to dry texture paste. As a matter of fact, I don't use a heat gun to dry much at all. My background's dry now, and I'm going to use this piece of plastic to do the smooshing technique with these mica powders. One is from Colour Blast and one is from Colour Crush. I think they're both Australian companies. So I'm going to spray a little bit of water onto my plastic, and then I'm just going to lightly sprinkle some of the first one I'm going to use is the Colour Blast, and that is Peach Nectar. So it's a sort of a pinky colour. Use my palette knife to mix that mica powder into the water that I'd sprayed on there, and then I'm just going to dab up and down onto my background using that plastic. So just the smooshing technique. I'm not looking for a full coverage, I'm just looking for some colours here and there. Here I tried to pick the colours that were closest to this colour range, and when they were dry they turned out to be a pretty good match actually. Now I'm using the sketch here so that I can see where my photos and that are going to be, so you know you don't really need to add colour under that. And I've got quite a large piece of pattern paper to the side there, so I probably won't worry about putting too much colour under there either. So yeah, so I'm going to do this same technique with the next colour, which is a yellow. It's a Colour Crush colour called Pineapple. Exactly the same technique. I did spray it with a bit of water, as you can see here, after I'd added the dabbing, but I didn't want too much running, and when I come in with the yellow colour, I don't really want the two colours to blend together. I want them to stay separate, so I won't spray the yellow with water or very little water so that I don't get them running together. As a final touch to my background, I wanted to add a bit of gold, so I'm using this Vicky Bouton gold glaze. I'm adding a little bit to a acrylic block, and then I'm just going to water that down with my water spray, and then just use my fan brush to splatter that onto the background. Once again, I'm not going overboard. I still want some white on that background. I don't know about you, but whenever I'm doing splattering, I always end up with whatever I'm splattering all over the place, including all over my computer monitor, which is just off screen there. Once again, I'll set this aside to dry naturally. Now while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to work on other aspects of my layout. My photo is a 6x4 photo, and I have used an emery board to file around all of the edges. Now I'm going to attach that to a piece of pink cardstock from my stash that I found that matches as close as I can to the pattern paper. I've cut the cardstock to 6 1/4 by 4 1/4, so I'm just going to have a very fine border all the way around. So now I'm going to start cutting my strips of pattern paper. I'm using the same paper that I did all the fussy cutting off to cut some of my strips. Because the paper has multiple colours on it, you can use that to your advantage so that you can use most of the paper from one sheet and it doesn't look like it's all the same. So I'm cutting one piece that is 7 1/2 by 1 3/4, one piece that is 9 inches by 1 1/4, one piece that is 8 inches by 1 inch, one piece that's 2 1/2 by 1 inch, and one piece that's 2 inches by 3/4 of an inch. And I'm cutting that from various pattern papers, trying to get as much as I can out of this one sheet. Now using the sketch, I'm going to play around with the placement of my pattern papers and also where I'm going to position my photo and cluster of papers on the actual page itself, whether I want to drop it down a bit or have it in the middle or a bit higher, whatever. So I'm just going to play around here for a few seconds and decide where I want what to be, which way I want the papers to turn so that they haven't got pink on pink and all that sort of thing. So yeah, just a bit of playing around. I wasn't that impressed with the layout at this stage, so I decided that I was going to put a black frame around the layout. I know there isn't one on the sketch, but I like a frame around my layouts, I'm afraid. I either will use a solid colour frame like this, or I will draw a frame, a scribbly frame, something like that. So I'm going to use a 12 by 12 piece of black cardstock, and I'm going to cut the centre out of that, so I'm just going to leave a 1 inch frame. Because I have added that 1 inch frame, I am now going to add a black mat behind the pink one of my photo. I don't like to just have one black item or one item of any colour on my layout. I like to have two, generally 3. So I'm going to cut that mat 6 1/4 by 4 1/4 and then attach it to the back of my photo. Next, I used my Versacolour black ink cube to ink around the edges of all of those paper strips. I have already inked around the edge of the flowers that I have fussy cut and that panel that I will be using down the side of my photo. I find it much easier to use liquid glue when I'm attaching things that need to line up a bit, so I'm going to use my art glitter glue around the outside edge of my white cardstock and then attach that to my black cardstock frame. I want to raise my photo up, so I'm going to add some scrap chipboard to the back of it. So now it's time to start actually attaching all of my pattern papers to my background. I have fussy cut this piece of paper that's going to go along the right hand side of my photo. It's sort of like chicken wire, but because it's coming from this pattern paper that's got bees on it, I think it's probably more like honeycomb. Anyway, I'm going to use that as my side panel and I'm going to attach everything in place. I'm using liquid glue, which is something that I'm doing a bit more of lately. I always used to use only double-sided tape on my scrapbooking layouts, but now I seem to be using more and more glue. No particular reason why. It's easy. You can move things around if you get them crooked, and what I've used so far seems to stay in place with no problem at all. And also, because this has got texture paste in the background, I think the liquid glue will stick a little better to that. But anyway, that's my theory and I'm sticking to it. So I'm going to put this on fast forward now so you don't have to spend half of your day watching me assemble this layout. I'll also add the fussy cut flowers. Now some of these I've mounted up onto scrap chipboard and others are flat on the page, just so that I've got a bit of up and down, bit of interest. Yeah, I'm using the art glitter glue once again to stick them in place. I've actually used a lot more flowers than are on the sketch, but that's just what I felt the layout needed. For a little bit of extra sparkle, I'm going to use my clear Wink of Stella, and I'm just going to apply that over the top of the pink flowers. In the sketch there's a butterfly or a dragonfly up in the top right hand corner of the layout. I decided that I would put a little cluster up there. So I've got 2 pieces of the pattern paper, a couple of offcuts, and one of the fussy cut flowers that are left over, and I inked around each of those and attached them up in the top right hand corner to make a little cluster. Wanted to just take this opportunity to say thank you to all my subscribers. I love the fact that you subscribe to my channel, and I really appreciate you being here and watching my videos. I would love it if you would share my videos with your friend. I'm trying to increase my numbers on YouTube. I will put links in the description box to the challenge and also to the Mystical Scrapbooks shop. You might notice that I've added an extra large fussy cut flower right underneath the photo. For the title, I'm going to use black once again and use my Craft alphabet uppercase dies just to write Anne's name. I'm going to stick that in the same place as the sketch, and I'm just going to use my reverse tweezers and my art glitter glue to place those letters in position. To add a little bit more sparkle and shine to my layout, I'm going to use my glossy accents and give the title a nice thick coat of that, and when that dries that will be beautiful and shiny. You can see the beautiful shiny title in the close-up photos at the end of the video. So that is the end of my layout for today. Don't forget, pop over to Mystical Scrapbooks and check out the Cybercrop. There's 3 sketches actually to choose from for this challenge, so yeah, check it out. There's also a bingo game, lots of prizes to be won. So thank you once again for watching my video today, and hopefully you'll be able to join me for my next video.